Welcome to Winning on Wednesday. My name is Juan Vides, and I'm the founder of Winning on Wednesday. Winning on Wednesday is a place where we meet, and I always say people do business who they know, like, and trust. We meet every Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And for more information, you can go to our website, winningonwednesday.com. Today's guest, I'd like to interview Jeremy Toeman. Jeremy, how are you today?
Doing great, Juan. How are you?
Good, good. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us the old elevator pitch, as they say.
Sure. I'm a original Canadian now living in the New York suburbs after a detour through Albuquerque, Pittsburgh, and San Francisco. I have three kids, a dog, live in the burbs, no picket fence, and have spent the better part of the past 30 years building video and technology convergence products from physical devices all the way up to apps and more. And on the free time, I'm drinking a little craft beers and going for hikes in the woods.
Excellent. I'm excited to talk more about your company. But first, tell us, where did it get all started? Where did it all begin? Where were you born?
So I'm from Montreal originally. Go
Hmm.
Habs for anyone who knows the reference. Big hockey fan, and spent my adolescence there. Was a teenager in Albuquerque of all places. Went to college in Pittsburgh. Spent a few years there afterwards in the '90s. Moved to the Bay Area right before, sort of in the early stage of the dot-com boom. Stayed there, stayed through the dot bubble, the dot bust or whatever it was called. Was there through Web 2.0. Was there through 2008, and then in the late around 2017, moved here to the New York suburbs in Westchester County. So that's my
Wow,
little journey.
the little journey. Now, what do you did you have any aspirations when you were younger? What did you want to become? Because I mean, what you're doing now, did you like you didn't think when you were younger you would be doing this now? Like, what did you have any ideas?
So originally it was first baseman for the Montreal Expos. That wasn't viable for multiple reasons. Uh, when I started high school, actually, I was really interested in architecture, and did my high school actually had an architecture early intro class, and realized it was one of those things. I've learned since that lots of people think that way, that like designing buildings and rooms and houses is really, and I realized it just sort of wasn't for me. However, I was also doing a lot. This was the late '80s, and I was one of the kids that like had the Commodore 64 and Apple II Plus, and was a total computer nerd. So I would say even in probably by mid teenage years, I figured my life would have something to do with computers. Went to college with a electrical and computer engineering double major at Carnegie Mellon, and then through the end of my freshman year realized that I still had that passion for the computers, but I didn't want to be the guy. I didn't want to be coding. I didn't want to be hacking things together, although I actually still do in a weird way. I wanted to do something more around the computer world. So I ended up switching majors into econ and business, and went off into the tech sector after that.
Yeah, wow. You mentioned Commodore 64, and I got a pleasure to meet Bob Lane, and Bob Lane is a friend of mine. He's the former CEO of the
I know
Commodore
the
64.
name.
You know Bob Lane, right? Yeah, he's come to my show numerous times, and God bless him. He's 91 years old, and I never thought in a million years that I would be friends with the CEO of the Commodore 64.
That's amazing. Well, unfortunately, he's also responsible, therefore, for one of my darkest childhood computer memories. I had built a video game. I was probably 14 or 15 at the time. It was in good old fashioned BASIC, and it was a text adventure like Zork or any of those for those old
Mm-hmm.
enough to remember. And right as I was nearing completion, no joke, the tape drive that I was saving everything on had it was tape, and the tape broke. I must have been this close to throwing the whole computer out the window. It was one of the,
Wow.
and my parents were there and they still remember that too. It was one of the darkest moments of my technology
Oh
career.
man, sorry. I could totally relate. It kind of similar to where I had with my Nintendo, and I had the Zelda. Remember Zelda?
Oh yeah, that blow up the
So
cartridge.
yeah, so the memory got erased. So and yeah, and I was at the last level. So it takes a long time. So, but wow, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was a gamer back then. But real quick, I wanted to show you share this real quick with with everybody. But that's Bob Lane right here, so two people could see he was on my show. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, so you could check that
Wow,
out. It's truly amazing. He's wonderful, but it to me, it's like a rock star in our industry with the computer world. And I was like, wow. And the fact that he tells me stories about Steve Jobs, I love hearing stories about him because he used to work with Steve Jobs in Next Computing.
sure.
So hearing all those stories, it's like it's very nice. It's nice to have him as a friend. So I'm hoping to have him
Amazing.
on the show. So I'm trying. He'll hopefully come on one of these days on the show. But anyway, so tell us about did you have any role models when you were growing up? I mean, for me, I guess I would say, now that I know Bob, he's a role model of mine. So do you have any other role models when you were growing up, or anybody like that?
I've had several, and for me, there were always actual people in my life in some way. So in high school, it was my algebra 2 teacher. I was, I'll be honest, I was a complete math nerd. I was great at math, like perfect score on the SAT, came in second in like the state math competition, which of course was the most important thing ever in high school. But I was also getting terrible grades. I was a terrible student. And he took me aside one day and basically did the son, you're doing way too, you understand all of this way too well for the grades you're getting. What is up? And basically from that point forward became a national merit scholar, was on the dean's list or no, that was in college, but ended up becoming a better student entirely because that guy was the first one to be, you don't let the grades do matter. I was a kid, I was like, why do the grades matter? Grades matter. So that was kind of my first one. My next one was actually my first job internship. My junior year of college, I went out to California. I was actually working for my cousin who inspired me in every way into my tech career. But he had a guy who worked for him at the time, this guy Bob, who was just like almost, I would say almost like Rebecca from Ted Lasso, a British guy with like just fierce, strong everything's, and could either just bring you up or tear you down in a heartbeat. And he was also one of those like do the work kind of people, and really got me into that like mindset of you can get things done when you need to. And since then I've had others, of course, but those two always come to mind when I think about where life got going.
Wow. And tell us about any hobbies or interests. I mean, you said you mentioned you have some earlier. You mentioned some, so tell us about that.
So yeah, my buddy Jeff got me into becoming a craft beer nerd. Don't worry, I'm still drinking Coronas on a hot sunny day, but now I go out to find the Fidens and Tree Houses and Marlows of the world. And so it's, I don't know if it's the best hobby either, but I enjoy it. Um, as much reading about it and like getting a sense of like how to really, taste the beers and the differences.
Hmm.
I do a lot of hiking in the woods. I happen to live in an area where I can literally walk to the hiking trails. I do a lot of jigsaw puzzles, which might sound geeky, but actually my friends ask me, they're like, how can you possibly be a person with the patience for jigsaw puzzles? And what I say is it's actually sort of a meditative space for me. It's a place where I can think about a work thing and get way into it in my head, but not be distracted by all the windows on my screen or whatever. And it's also a place where I can just think about life or think about nothing and let music on in the background. So I know it might sound like a weird thing, but sitting down with no other things to do than, and jigsaw puzzles are weird. I always say this, like, hey, here's this beautiful picture, only we've cut it up into 1,000 pieces. You put it together. It's kind of a funny thing.
I
Uh,
u- I used to do that with the family, with the kids when they were younger. We used to all do it at the dinner table. We used to all do it together, and it was fun because it was what everybody had an assignment. They had that certain section. We used to always separate the colors, and it
love it.
was yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I
Love it.
remember.
I get my kids into it from time to time. They wax and wane, and I will over geek out. I've just purchased. Apparently, of course, it's the internet. I found there is such a thing as a puzzle competition, and
Oh
so I've
wow.
just purchased the speed puzzling challenge, where I'm going to apparently have to video yourself
It-
doing the entire thing as a time lapse and
Wow.
timing yourself and all that. So, wish me luck.
Work out those fingers. So
Exactly. It's a finger day today. It's a
yeah.
finger day.
Excellent, excellent. And out of curiosity, what's the largest piece you ever solved?
I participated with a group in the 64,000 piece puzzle, which is actually 64,000 piece puzzles. So I did a couple of those. So I have a picture though, and it's the size of my friend's driveway.
Oh wow.
Personally, the biggest one I have here, I think, is about 3,000. I like 1,500 to 2,000 is sort of my day to days. I find that it's thousands you can get through really quick. Again, I could talk about puzzles for way too long. I like really
But they,
challenging stuff. I like things that seem really hard. What I don't like, those, my definition of that is where there's many ways that pieces can come together. I'm already done with the puzzles where it's like all one color or things like that, because to me it's not the challenge I enjoy. I can't quite explain that. To me is just rote, like, does it fit here? Does it fit here? Does it fit
uh,
here? You know?
yeah, I listen. I find this fascinating, though. I just find it fascinating because I never realized you never like the depth of how this. There's a whole community. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize it was that depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm finally, in my 50s, I'm finally taking more, self-care as a hobby in a way where between morning yoga and stretching, journaling more, meditating more, etc.
Be-
But really actually
Between
coming up with my own, like, this is my routine, so that future me is in better shape than he otherwise would be.
and between the beers, obviously, but what degree what did you go to school for? What was your school for? What was your major in school?
So it was, I dabbled on this earlier. I started as electrical and computer engineering. My freshman year, I was building and programming robots. And then I switched into a econ degree and a business degree. It was part of it was I had enough credits that was an easy transition, but I took my first econ class in college and I just really liked it. For me, it was again, I'm going to nerd out for a sec. I loved my first physics class, which sounds weird because physics is, here's how math makes sense, right? You've learned all these formulas, you've learned all this stuff, but physics is applying that math to the real world problems. For me, econ was almost the same thing. It was like, oh, because of supply and demand, X, Y, and Z happen, right? And understanding those as sort of the basic building block principles to everything from war to how people get rich to why people vote certain ways. Like I really drank the econ Kool-Aid, in that time. And then the business degree, because I recognized, actually, I took a public speaking course at the same time as a basic marketing course. And I was like, oh, this is how I can take all those things I dream up and products I invent in my head and actually apply them to the real world. So that's where those two sort of came together.
Now, tell us about your first job right out of college, and then take us the journey from there to what you're doing now. And tell us how that
So
was like. We like to hear those stories.
sure. So I mentioned earlier, I had a summer internship with my cousin in California. My first job actually started in college. He basically pivoted his company to building a tech product, but the consulting work they've been doing, building websites, good old HTML 0.9, not even 1.0, helping companies make their first web presence. He basically called me up. He's like, we're not going to do this anymore. You can have all our clients. And I said, okay, let's go. And so my final semester of college, I had started my web consulting company. We were Focus Consulting, and we were helping companies get online. We built web pages for Visioneer, one of the first scanner companies, Relax the Back, which still exists as a ergonomic retail storefront, as well as many local businesses, including the local Pittsburgh paintball facility. So I was doing that for a few years. I then actually sold that business to go full-time into a startup I had done with a colleague of mine called Palmtastic. And it was a Palm Pilot web portal, because I was obsessed with a Palm Pilot. We actually built it to the second largest Palm Pilot community online. This is 1998. I didn't know anything about venture capital at the time. We couldn't make any money off the thing, and I needed to pay the bills. So we ended up shutting it down. But I joke is that, like, if we had just known, we would have been able to raise, I would have been a paper.com millionaire, back when that was all going down. Instead, we shuttered that down. And my cousin was actually thinking of a new startup. We started spending time together, and we started this company, Mediabolic, which, to long story short, think Roku, but way too soon. So it was an operating system for the living room. We built the first ever streaming device. It was called the HP digital receiver. It was shipped in 2001 as a little streaming box. We built a whole home DVR TiVo-like system for Pioneer. We built another system like that for Denon. Ended up winning Best in CES that year. So
Oh wow.
literally, of all the
I
products, we were on stage as the winning. Uh,
Wow. I was gonna say I remember the Slingbox.
that was next. So that led me
Right.
directly to Sling. I was brought in as the first employee pre-funding to Sling Media and built the original
Oh.
Slingbox for the guys.
Oh wow.
And that was obviously an amazing experience. Both companies ended up getting acquired around the same time. It was around 2007. From there, I spent about 4 years consulting again. Nowadays, we would call it being a fractional CPO, which is way fancier than what I was thinking. But I called it Stage Two Consulting, which is all about a South Park joke of step one, collect underpants, step three, profit. What about step two? And so we called ourselves Stage Two Consulting because the whole idea was you have this idea for a thing like collect underpants. We'll help you build a better one so that you can go profit. And we helped launch a lot of startups, clicker.com, which got acquired, boxy.com, which got acquired, Waze, the GPS app. I worked with them when they were 10 people,
Wow.
worked with Voodoo, worked with Sonos, worked with all sorts of amazing, cool startups, and did that for about 5 years. From there, I had the startup itch again. So I had a startup called Digit with a J. And Digit we built an app called Next Guide. It was basically the first ever TV guide app that combined live TV and streaming all into one view. We had partnerships with half the major networks from NBC to Fox to BBC America to plenty more. And they were working with us to help promote their shows to in-market viewers. We were acquired in 2014. About a year later, I went and joined CBS Interactive. So I had kids, and my kids were getting older, and really wanted to be more home because startup life is a little hectic. So I spent about 4 years at CBS. That's right near the end of that's when we moved to New York. And then after moving to New York, and I was doing basically Zoom-based remote management, before it got all trendy. I also got a little burnt out of Zoom-based remote management. Ended up going over to Etsy for a little while, about 7 months. Long commute, helped them really restructure the entire product organization, but it wasn't really, I realized I really wanted to just sort of stay in media. From there, spent a little time launching a German TV startup called Joyn with a Y, Joyn. They were basically, for simple analogy, Hulu for Germany. We launched them in, the year before the pandemic, so 2019. Within 3 months, 5% of the German population was active users. So really a great ramp up over there. And they went off to do great things. Finally, went back to actually having a local career, spent 2 years running product and innovation for Warner Media. And then the pandemic hit and sort of came out of that with I think I'm ready to do startups again. And so 3 years ago, 3 years ago in 1 month today, I left Warner and started putting the steps and motions in place to get a startup going. And then in January of 22, did another startup. And that's called Augie, and that's where I am today.
Wow, I had no clue. Very fascinating. You had oh my goodness, wow, that's a journey.
It's,
It's
it's been a
definitely a
little
journey.
journey.
It's definitely a journey. So tell us about this time I like to say that with the golden nugget moment, and the golden nugget moment is tell us about what you've learned from your journey, any piece of information that could better help somebody better with their career, better be a better business person, better person. Tell us what you've learned from your journey, your experience, what you could leave behind for us.
You know, I think there are a lot of people out there who envision the career, plan around the career, and get really like that's what they want to do. In fact, my physical therapist, because I have some back issue, but my physical therapist told me that she knew she wanted to be a physical therapist in middle school, right? And I was like, you heard my story. I never really knew what I wanted to be. So for those of you who know what you want to be, wonderful. I'm so impressed by anyone who can have that kind of passion, whatever it might be. For the rest of us, what I would say is the more you can sort of build antennae, like like this will sound weird. Think about like an insect that has like antennae, and their whole world is like how they feel the wind and the like little particles in the air, whatever. I don't know. I'm making this up. I assume that's what their world is. I like to think of my career in the same way as I've never had one day I will do this, one day I will do that, one day I will do this. I've instead done you know, where's the wind blowing? What are the dust particles in the air? What is the thing that is going to be the most fulfilling and vision for where I want to take myself? And because of that, I've had amazing opportunities, right? I consider myself so lucky to have had this career. Like Sling Media only happened for me because I was demoing stuff from Mediabolic at CES on stage in front of lots of people. And the founders of Sling happened to be there. And so you can say things like, well, that's serendipity, and you can say things that's luck, but all the people who have that, you make your own luck. This is to me what I believe in, that when you are operating life with putting your best self out there and seeing what the best thing out there might be coming back at you, I believe good things happen. And so that's my first thing is if you're not sure what you want to do, don't be so obsessed with figuring it out, but be obsessed with, reading the tea leaves, finding out like what, is the universe trying to tell you something? When I was starting Augie, I actually, in those first few days, wasn't intending to do a startup, right? Augie at the very initial stage was the idea of, I'd left Warner, but I was going to do some consulting work. I was going to be a fractional CPO again. And I had this little idea for this video editing software because I was really frustrated with video editing software and thought maybe it would be like an easy little, like hire a dev shop side hustle kind of thing. I was talking about it with two friends on 2 consecutive days, both of whose opinions I respect the heck out of, both of whom in those 2 days were like, that should be your next startup. Don't do all this other stuff. Do that thing. And I was like, well, that's the universe right there. So like read the tea leaves, pay attention to the waters, listen, socialize ideas, get feedback, talk to people whose opinions you respect and admire, and soak it all in to figure out what's that best path for you. No one else's path is your path.
That's great information, and thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, I totally agree with what you said with that, because sometimes you never know where they will take you. I mean, look for me, for instance. I'm doing this podcast. I never thought that I used to be shy, an introvert kid. Never thought that I would be doing this in a million
Wow.
years. You never thought about that. In high school, I was a shy kid. I was never,
Same.
you know what I mean? So, and the fact that I'm able to do this now, and and have the experience. That's the thing people don't really understand. So you have to put it out in the universe. If you don't put it out, people are not going to know about it. So to your point, you're absolutely, you got to put it out there. You got to put the work, that energy. You have to manifest it, to put it out there. However it is, where going to events or making phone calls, you have to put it out. That's the bottom
Agreed.
line, And
Yep.
and to your point, that's where you went to CES, took that energy, took the trip out there, and I know I've been to CES, so and I know it takes a lot, especially I work because I work with Jeff. I was at CES in 2005, I believe. So,
Wow.
yeah, I was there. So I was with Jeff and everything. But I know it takes a lot of work, and it's a big, it's like what, 3 days or 4 days the event. I
Dude,
mean, the expo.
I've done 20 CESs, of which 6 of them, my job was some form of spokesperson, some form of communication
Wow,
demo
wow.
person. My first year, the first year Sling was up there, so that was 2005.
Yep.
So '04 was with Mediabolic, we won Best in Show. '05 was with Sling, we won Best Home Media Device. Not We came in second for Best in Show, and I was on stage doing demos for Sling, and I'm not exaggerating, no less than 14 hours a day, and a couple of days probably hit about 18 hours a day. Same story over and over and
Yeah, the same
over
pitch
again.
over pitch. Yep.
And if I could re-experience those 4 days, I would do it right now. It
Yeah.
was,
It's fun. It's fun.
yeah,
It's fun. It
yeah.
goes by so quick, though. It does go by quick. And I mean, I've been to Jeff. Jeff Pulver was the one that I went through, and to your point, he had the Y-SIP, the first SIP protocol for wireless,
Right.
phones, and we was distributing it on the CES, so it was a big deal. And we had the Vizio phones, which is the Korean phones,
Oh
the
my
video
gosh,
phone,
Vizio phone.
Vizio phone. Yeah, he's not coming back. Yeah, so I had that, and I had the pleasure, to your point, to do a video phone. This is going back to 2005 with the chairman Michael Powell. So I showed him
Oh wow.
me doing a demo for Michael Powell.
And by
This,
the way, listen to what like. By the way, my version of that in 2000,
yeah.
I through a series of circumstances when I was at Mediabolic, we were licensing tech to all the consumer electronics companies, and I got 30 minutes in a room solo with the CEO of Sony,
Wow.
which today is like, oh, okay, Sony.
Yeah, yeah, at
For
that
anyone
time,
who doesn't know this, in the year 2000, Sony was bigger than Google, Apple,
they were like Netflix.
Samsung, and LG. Samsung and LG at the time made vacuum cleaners and microwaves, right?
Right.
Netflix was the DVD company. Sony was the number one market shareholder in every single category of home entertainment devices.
Wow.
Everything was Sony. And I'm 20, I don't know, 28 years old.
I
And
remember.
I'm talking to this guy about the future of the connected home. Because at that moment in life, we had the same amount of knowledge about the space. So anyone who's like imposter syndrome or whatever, you might be as qualified as one with Chairman Powell and me with as Sony, because you never know
Yeah, you
actually
never know.
that guy,
Yeah.
or that girl.
And
Like,
the best part, Jeremy, I got somebody took a picture of me doing it too. So I have a picture with Powell, me, and the phone, and Jeff. It was just a beautiful thing. I'm like, wow, I would never thought in a million years that I would be doing that. So
love it.
for me, it was just like, wow. Like, and I could always, you reflect back, and those are my badge of honors, as you
Love
can say
it.
in the
That's
business.
great.
Yeah. So tell us about the networks. Do you belong to any spheres of influence or networks or communities? I'm sure you belong to some video or anything that you belong to a business or. But tell us something about organizations or business communities or anything that you belong to that you know anyone.
Sure. It's an interesting thing. I don't think I'm part of any like really formal organization, but I am active with a bunch, like for example, a lot of Slack communities. So there's
Hmm.
something called the AI Marketing Group, and they're
Okay.
based out in New York. And we've done events with them. I've done events with them. I've given a couple of webinars.
Yep.
I was in the Aspen Institute's tech team a couple of years ago, and so that they still have an ongoing community. Um, so I generally participate in things that way. So, gosh, I could pull it. I don't want to pull up my Slack because I'm sure there's 1,000 messages from me. But
Yeah.
there's product groups I'm part of, marketing groups I'm part of, a couple of AI groups. Because our product sort of straddles all those worlds. I'm definitely in some kind of media tech professionals circle.
Right.
And then a buddy of mine locally gets dads and techs together once a month, and so I do that too.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. But you see, this is exactly what I like to hear because people don't realize that network is so important. And that's how you get to know people like you and
Yeah,
I always say people do business who they know, like, and trust, and that makes the business much easier when you get to know people on a personal level. It makes it
totally
much
agree.
more smoother. So that's why I always ask what networking groups belong. But that's cool that you belong to that tech group. That's awesome. I never heard. That's the first I hear of this. You see?
Yeah, we've been starting a meetup in Westchester County, an a monthly AI meetup. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to make it monthly yet because I'm sort of the ringleader and I'm busy fundraising, and it's a little tricky to run a startup and your life and an organization, a few other things, but it'll come
I
together.
I
2025 will be strong.
I know somebody that does virtual meetings. So if you ever need virtual meetings, let me know. I know a good person and I could recommend you.
I love that. I want to. I need more. I need the in real life. I need the IRL right now. Personally, I want to. I
Oh,
more
you went.
excuses to get the heck off a Zoom call. But
Oh, okay, no
but I
worries.
think we'll have a virtual component. I definitely know a guy.
Yeah, okay, no good. No, but you know what? There's nothing. You're absolutely right about that because I just recently started going out to network, and I'll tell you a quick story about networking. I've been fishing in the same pond for 25 years. So guess what? Sometimes if something doesn't work, you have to change your environment. So the minute I change my environment, now going to the Manhattan, going to the city, more doors and opportunities are happening. I'm like, wow. I'm like, It's amazing when you venture out, and there's a whole other world. Sometimes you think it's you're isolated because you're in one, location, but sometimes you
Right.
gotta take yourself, like you said, physically, and go out there. I know it's like an hour trip for me, but you know what? The amount of opportunities that I've had open to me, and I'm like, wow, like I would never thought that I would be working with this people, this person, and so I'm saying, so it just, I'm truly amazed about the wonderful
Awesome.
video. Yeah, so that's wonderful. So now we're at the almost at the end of the interview, and we saved the best for last. So we're gonna be talking about Augie now. Tell us about Augie, how we got it started, and tell us everything. Just I know you
Sure.
mentioned a bit about it, but now we're gonna go on the nuts and bolts of Augie.
I like it. It's like it's the dessert of the podcast. Um, dessert. Having dessert as your main course, by the way, isn't the worst thing in the world. Um, so, short version here. Back in the pandemic, I was doing a podcast with actually JT, my co-founder. We've been friends for 15 years. In the pandemic, you were either a podcaster, making bread, or learning a language, right? Everybody did one of those three things. So we did a podcast, and per the Atlantic cartoon, or anyone who saw it, it's about movies, but we tell jokes along the way. That's kind of what we were doing. But we took it seriously. It was like a real like effort of love kind of thing. And so I had read, make a video trailer for your podcast is the best way to grow. So I was at Warner at the time. I had access to the entire Adobe Creative Cloud suite. I tried learning how to use Premiere. And what I learned was 40 hours of self-paced tutorials is insufficient because that tool is amazing. The level of things you can do in Premiere or Final Cut or Avid or Resolve, it's unbelievable to me how much can be done. It's also unfortunately true that the learning curve is immense. And for some folks like myself, I just couldn't, I never got over that first big moment. And all I started thinking about was like, why, video as commonplace and important as is, why is this so hard? Now, what's important here is also, I didn't want to make a selfie style video, what we might call an influencer or creator kind of video. Nothing wrong with that. It's just not what I wanted. It didn't represent it properly. It wasn't the way I envisioned it. And so I started thinking like, what would make it easier for people to make video? And I started thinking through really in depth, like, what are the really hard parts about it? And in doing my research and doing a lot of reading, one of the things I learned is traditional video editing. In other words, anytime you are making a storyboard, right? If you've ever seen a video editor, it's always a long storyboard with a waveform and imagery. That is a non-linear thinking process. And humans are not good at non-linear thinking. We are very good at linear thinking, but it's non-linear because we can't picture how these things are supposed to work. Every human being, we have 60,000 years as a species of telling stories, but we do it this way. We just talk. We're very good at that. Every human can just talk about something. Some may be better than others. Some people, Steve Jobs is a phenomenal presenter. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not the worst, but I'm not of that level, right? So what I started realizing is if we could build a product that would take what we're good at and make that the sort of vehicle for how the video should work, we might just be able to solve a hard problem. And so that's what Augie does. Is we used to use the phrase, Augie turns your words into videos, because the basic principle of what we built was we will listen to whatever the transcript, the narration is. We will analyze that whole narration word by word, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. We will then match up automatically a piece of video or an image or a graph or whatever to match the words being spoken. So if I'm using a phrase like, let me show you about Augie, right, our video editing software, what Augie itself would do is maybe think about the words demonstration or presentation. It might think of public speaker. It might think of video editing, right? So our AI will use that sentence. It will then take a prompt. So let's say it picked the words video editing. It will then compare that prompt to my entire library of video clips, whatever I've recorded and uploaded to our profile. If there isn't anything that matches, it'll then go off to the Getty image catalog. We have a partnership with Getty, and pick a clip, say video editing, and I'm sure there's probably thousands of different video editing clips inside the Getty stock library, it'll pick one and insert it into my video. It'll do that for the entire video. So basically about 2 minutes after I start, I have a rough draft ready to go. And this is what we've learned is so crucial, is that we take away the nonlinear part of video editing and give it to you as a, here's your storyboard, go edit, right? And whether you are using all your own footage, all stock footage, or any combination in between, you now have a frame of reference. So if the Getty thing got you a video clip and it's some person, hacking away at video editing, I'm like, oh, I'm going to remove that clip. Instead, I'm going to show a screenshot of Augie in that spot. The final thing about Augie is it uses your words as the primary editor. So we give you the entire transcript. You can highlight the words you want to use. You can unhighlight the words you don't want to use. We just remove them from the video for you. And we then let you set your line breaks, your transition effects, whatever you're going to do, all around the words. At no point do we show you a waveform. At no point do we show you dragging things around and without context. So we've taken this really, really puzzling thing and made it radically easier. We still have about 100 more features I want to build, and there's, our AI is always improving. But I could take this entire podcast on and make a promo episode for you in under 10 minutes, right?
Wow.
And so that's what Augie's all about. And look, we've integrated with Dropbox. You can import all your features. We've got collaborative editing. We have one-click sharing, one-click picture-in-picture, subtitling, closed captions. You can watermark your video. We've integrated Adobe Express. Need to generate something? One click. You can do just about everything you can do in a pro video tool, but you can't actually do everything. We don't give you all of the flexibility, and that's on purpose. Our philosophy is, we're going to help those who have never made video before get started and take the burden off professional video editors who are always the bottleneck. And I don't mean that in a critical way. There's just more work to be done than anyone has the time to do. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to sort of level the playing field so that the pros' time is spent on really, really cool stuff. And the average marketer, social media manager, outbound emailer, salesperson, et cetera, entrepreneur, solopreneur, content creator, they can be self-sufficient at so much more.
You're absolutely right. I still remember when I first started doing video editing. It was frustrating for me. It was really frustrating. You have to have a lot of patience, but what I like about it now, it's kind of makes it easier and more intuitive, I think, now with all the tools that are out there. So the fact that if you can make it more easier for the user, and it's all about, as you know, it's about the user experience.
Sure
I think
is.
that's one of the things that the ultimate goal is, if you can make it simple and easy, and if you can make that simple and easy for everybody. Well, I'm looking forward to definitely doing the podcast. They'll definitely use that and we'll promote it. This will be my pleasure. So I'm so excited about that. So I'm excited to try it about that. Any future goals? What are the future goals? Anything for the 2025 or first quarter for Augie? Anything up? What's anything exciting or new in this next year?
I mean, it's a startup. There's always exciting and new. 2025, we have made some pretty strong distribution partnerships that we can't announce yet, but they're going to all be going live in Q1. So that's going to be putting Augie in front of, honestly, by the end of Q1, I think we'll be in front of about 200 million monthly active users on a variety of other platforms. Wow. People who are looking to create content, market content. 70% of business, by the way, just a couple of neat stats. 70% of businesses today make one or less video to market themselves per year.
Agreed. Yeah.
At a time when we should be making videos for your brand every day,
yes.
Most companies are one or less per year.
Agreed. Yeah. Wow.
70% of those companies, their heads of marketing have stated that they'll be starting in social video in the next calendar year. So we think that, look, and there's a lot of other interesting tools in the space, as you mentioned too. We're not alone in the trying to solve video for everybody. We're trying to solve a very specific need, which is again around promotional content, which doesn't just mean ads. It could be thought leadership, explainer videos. We're not trying to boil there's tools coming for creators. There's tools coming for educators. There's tools coming for doctors. Everybody's getting new tools right now. And so we're very focused on what we do. So we're expecting a really hectic year, to be honest, where there's just going to be, the market demand for more video. Like if I here's my last stat. I don't even promise to stop, but hopefully I'll stop with this one. Every minute of every day, over 500 hours of video content is uploaded to YouTube per minute, and 70% of that content is consumer. So the opportunity for business grade video is huge, and they need tools like ours and many others to really get there. And so I'm really excited
Yeah.
about
I,
bringing some
I'm
change about.
I'm excited to try it August. So I'm really really excited, and I can't wait to promote it on the podcast. So really, thank you so much. And Jeremy, what's the best way to contact you? By the way, what's the best way if people want to reach out to you? What's the best way to
Easy
contact
way
you?
to find me is on LinkedIn. Is probably the easiest way to find me. The thing is, I have a unique name, so if you literally Google my name, you find me every time. And I'm inactive on Twitter, so please don't find me there. LinkedIn's definitely the way where I'll be.
The best way to go. I think, yeah, that's the
Absolutely.
best way for more. Okay. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and spending time with us. And wow, impressive resume, by the way. I had no clue. I had no idea, but you really wowed me today. Talk about winning on Wednesday.
Oh,
You really did wow me. So thank you so much for being on my show today. And if you want to be a guest on my Winning on Wednesday, just go to our website, winningonwednesday.com, and sign up as a first time guest. And we'll see you next week. See you.